Welcome, everybody. Thank you to episode 4 of our Trades Accelerator sessions with Alison Warner and yours truly, Francis Rodino. We've come together, yes, to put together a mini accelerator program that covers the fundamentals, all the way from marketing your trades business through to lead management, through to what do you do with the leads? You have to win those jobs. And in number 4, we're going to cover, it sounds simple, but there's a lot to it. It's all about managing your time. Can't manage your business if you can't manage your time. And this is a prevalent problem across many industries. So I'd love to introduce Alison again, who's prepared a special piece for us. And I would also welcome Peter and Richard on the call if you want to ask some questions. This can be an interactive session. Happy to have an open discussion as well. So Alison, welcome to the episode of Trades Accelerator Sessions.
Thank you very much, Francis. So welcome to everybody who's joining us live on Facebook, and we've also got Peter and Richard on Zoom. As Francis has said, because you're on Zoom, you do have the option then to ask questions. So I'm going to start by sharing my screen. I think what we've tried to do in these sessions is take you on a journey, as Francis said there, from the whole marketing piece, lead generation, how you manage those leads, how you win the job. But the next problem, if you like, could be your time and how we manage it. And time management is often a problem that clients cite with us when they first come to us. I haven't got enough time. And the reality is, the harsh reality is, we all have the same amount of time. It's actually how we choose to manage it. And before we get into this little tool here, let me just share a story with you. So I often tell the story of when I was an area manager. I've been an area manager for about 8 years with 2 different companies, and my weeks were pretty structured. So I knew pretty much what I needed to get done in that month. So for example, off the top of my head, like week 1 was maybe the regional meeting, week 2 was my area meeting, and week 3 and 4 I'd have my one-to-ones. And then in amongst that, I had to do audit. So I had to audit every store once a month. So that sounds like quite a lot of activity, and it was, and I had to get it all done. So it was really just a case of filling my diary with those activities. I then went into a head office role where I was looking after the resourcing department. And I remember sitting there in my first week and my diary was empty. And I felt incredibly guilty. And as an operator, it felt really odd because it felt like I didn't have anything to do. Now, of course, I did have something to do. The difference was that my weeks and months were no longer scripted out for me. I had to kind of decide, right, what were my objectives? What do I need to achieve? And what activities would drive the achievement of those objectives. And the reason why I tell that story is because I'm very aware that none of you are going from an operational role into a head office role. But I see my clients go on this journey sometimes because as they come off the tools, suddenly they're not filling their diary with actual work and jobs. They're then suddenly stepping into a role where they're having to manage a business. And sometimes, more often than not, they don't even actually have a diary. And if they do, it's a paper diary, which is my bugbear. So my first rule is, right, get electronic diaries that you can share and you can see your team and maybe your office manager can see your diary, and have it electronic, and get an electronic to-do list. I tend to recommend Microsoft To Do, because then it's syncing with your phone and your computer. And just that alone sometimes can make a big difference. But then it's about stepping back, I guess, in the way that I did in that role, and work out, right, how do I need to structure my week? What should it look like? What are the sorts of things that I need to do to actually step into that role of being a business manager? Because whether you like it or not, if you come off the tools and you're managing a business, you are no longer an electrician or a plumber or a builder or a landscape gardener. You are a business owner of that type of business. And so the whole thinking, the whole mindset is different. And so what I'm about to share with you, often my clients, this is their favorite activity. And this is something that I would be doing on a weekly basis. So, but the first thing, before we even get into doing this, is something called prioritizing. And it comes from a book called Your Brain at Work by David Rock. Now, this is fairly recent research. When I say recent, it's about 10, 11 years ago. But David Rock got a bunch of neuroscientists together with a bunch of leadership experts, and they looked to see what was actually going on in people's brains whilst they're at work. Now, he came up with a different framework for it, but before I get into that, he looked at the impact of how we are all now working, bearing in mind this was 2008, 2009, and he was talking about the challenges, the stresses that we have in the different numbers of communication channels that we have to manage. So it's texts, voicemails, emails, and social media. Now, since 2009, it's got even more complex, hasn't it? We've got WhatsApp, we've got, I don't know, a whole different range of ways of people contacting us, and it's almost like having all of these different plates that we're spinning and trying to keep in the air and trying to keep on top of everything. So I think it's massively more complex than, say, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, when I'm trying to think, 25 years ago, probably mobile phones were just becoming commonplace, weren't they? I'm old enough to remember the pages, when people paged you to get hold of you.
Yeah.
Showing my age. And the world's just a completely different place, and the challenges on our time are even more complex, and we're moving at such a faster rate. So bit of a long-winded story, but the point I'm making, it's so important that the first thing that you do, if time management is something that you want to improve on, the first thing that you do is you must prioritizing. That's what Rock called it. That was one of the findings from his research, that you must have some time set aside in your diary to do this kind of planning and organizing. Mm-hmm. And the other thing he said was remove distractions. So if you've got some planning and admin time, make sure you're somewhere where you're not going to be disturbed. Switch off the phone, switch off emails, so that you can completely dedicate the time to that activity. The risk of not doing that, if you want to get for those of you who are interested in the neuroscience behind it, the risk of not doing that is that you are constantly jumping from task to task. And what's happening in the process is you are tiring out the front part of your brain called the prefrontal cortex. Now, that's all getting quite neuroscientific, but think of the prefrontal cortex as where your energy reserves are stored. So it's almost like the fuel in your fuel tank. And what happens is if you use up your valuable energy reserves by jumping from task to task, answering the phone, answering an email, then coming back to working on a quote, and you're continually switching, those energy reserves will go down very quickly. And what you'll find is when you need to really concentrate on doing something maybe quite complex, your brain goes, forget that, and it will procrastinate, and you'll go, I can't deal with that, I'm too tired, and you'll put it off till tomorrow. So this whole procrastination thing sets in. So it's really about being very strict with your time so that you can focus on one task at a time and getting it done. Certainly if there's something that is very important to do. So make sure you're somewhere quiet, remove distractions, and prioritizing. So this is the tool to prioritizing, bit of a mouthful. It's often referred to as a tool that Stephen Covey developed. Stephen Covey wrote 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, but actually it was President Eisenhower that initially developed this tool, and it's called the Urgent Important Matrix. So all you need to do once a week, dedicate planning and organizing time. My general advice is either a Monday morning, that's when I do mine, or a Friday afternoon for trades. Often that's their preference. So either the beginning or the end of the week. It doesn't have to be huge. It might just be an hour, and somewhere quiet. You basically step back from your business, get your to-do list, and this is a way of organizing your to-do list. So we've basically have we got these in the right boxes here? Yeah, I think we have. Hang on. Yeah, that is right. So the top left-hand box is urgent and important. Now, the things that go into this box are really the things that need to be done within the next 24 hours. So that's your to-do list. You must get those things done within the next 24 hours. So they're urgent. So maybe it's a deadline that you've committed to, you get committed to getting back to somebody within, maybe getting a quote out or a phone call or dealing with an emergency, something. Those are the things that you do within the next 24 hours. The box that's not urgent, but important, when I'm talking about importance in this context, don't take it too literally. Think of these are the things that only you can do. So you can't delegate it over to somebody else. That might be a temporary thing. Maybe you haven't got anyone trained at the moment to delegate it to, and over time you could have. But those are the things that must stay with you, but they don't have to be done within the next 24 hours. The trick here is to look at those tasks and estimate how long they're going to take. So let's imagine you've got a quote to put together and it's going to take 2 hours. What I would say is take that task and actually put it into your electronic diary and schedule out the time to do it. Now, if something happens, let's say you put it in for Wednesday morning at 10 o'clock, for argument's sake, and let's imagine that at 9:30 you get an emergency. Clearly, you're not going to say, well, I've got to do my quote because it's in the diary. I wouldn't expect you to do that. But what you mustn't do is just ignore it. The trick is to then move that task to somewhere else in the diary. So the idea is that 80% of the time your diary happens as planned. 20% of the time it probably doesn't, but you're moving the tasks. I promise you this will make a massive difference, because it's also giving the prefrontal cortex a bit of a rest as well, because it doesn't like having to remember all of these things. What I find, it's amazing, the trades that I work with, the amount of information that they manage to carry around in their heads and remember without writing down. It's incredible. I mean, my memory's shocking nowadays. I have to write everything down. But I would also diarize activity, so it doesn't get squeezed into the evenings and weekends. So that's the trick. Estimate how much time you're going to need to do that task. Make sure you're not interrupted, and put it into the diary and make sure you're not interrupted whilst you're working on it. And that includes one-to-ones with your team and things of that nature.
Yeah.
The bottom left-hand quadrant there are things that are urgent, so need to get done fairly urgently, but they're not as important, meaning that you can delegate them to somebody else. And I'd really, I'm catching myself on this all of the time, because I am the sort of person that, if I hold my hands up and be honest, is really, I'll just be quicker, I'll just do it myself. But really, I'm always trying to catch that, thinking, right, this is something that Kathleen could be doing. That's my PA. It might mean I have to dedicate some time into the diary to train her in that task. But there's this, I'm always trying to challenge myself to think, right, could this be delegated? Am I really the right person to be doing this? And then the bottom hand quadrant there is ditch. These are the things that aren't urgent and aren't important. And so it's the things that we can slip into doing. Maybe it's checking Facebook, spending time on social media, whatever it is that distracts you, that is not driving the business forward and you shouldn't really be doing. Those things go into that box. So what I tend to find is it's about making a habit of this, really. So you probably only need to do it for a few weeks. Maybe every Monday, you draw out your little square, you put the tasks in the relevant box, and then at some point, probably after you've done it 7 times, we tend to need to do something 7 times before it becomes a habit. You could probably ditch the square and you'll just get into that habit of diarizing things, which then mean that your do box, the things that are urgent, become less. So often when I start working with a client, that box is full of tasks, but once they get into a better rhythm of managing their to-do list, then that becomes a smaller smaller information in that box, because they're diarizing activity and they're getting through it. Their to-do list is not as long. Have you seen this before, out of interest, Francis?
No, I haven't seen this particular format. I've seen different tools on the market, and in books and things like that. So it's a really interesting way of structuring it.
Yeah. I think so. Just it's taking that step back. Another little exercise to do is what I call the £10, £100, and £1,000 task exercise. And this is where you make a list of everything that you're doing currently that's taking up your time, and you really challenge yourself on, right, is this something I should be doing? Is this a £10 task, meaning it's something I can easily delegate and outsource to somebody to do? So it's either not adding a huge amount of value to the business, or there's not much risk involved if it went wrong. That's a £10 task. So maybe, I don't know, reconciling your banking on your accounting software.
Yeah.
The £100 tasks are something that add more value or carry a little bit more risk, but you could train someone else to do them. And the £1,000 tasks are the things that you absolutely should be doing. So in the world of a trade, maybe it's, going to see a new customer. That's something that you probably wouldn't want to be delegating, as an example. And often the £1,000 tasks in there, we include things that the client would like to be doing, but currently can't find the time for. So that's another great way of sort of adding a layer onto this tool, is think about your £10, because your £10 tasks probably are your delegates. Yeah. Your £100 maybe are delegates or diarise, and the £1,000 would be that diarise as well. So the things that you never get around to doing, but if you did find the time for, could add real value to the business.
Yeah. And where do standard operating procedures come in? Like
in what context?
Well, in terms of, do you recommend that people start to document all of the things that they do again and again, and sort of keep a repository of
absolutely
things? Because that, I guess, is a really important part of the delegation point. Because sometimes delegating, one of the things that can stop people from delegating is this idea that no one will do the job as good as themselves.
Yes, absolutely.
Right? And I'm guilty as hard in that. And we try to delegate. Well, we've started doing SOPs, as we call them, standard operating procedures. Especially in businesses which have sort of high churn in terms of recruitment and people coming and going, and you need to delegate, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And because you don't want to be training somebody or a different person in that position every 6 months if you've got high turnover. You want to have some kind of record of it. And I would say the trick there is, to begin with, is you in your early stages of growth, it probably is you doing that documentation in some form or another. But as time goes on, you're wanting whoever's good at doing that type of task to be creating almost the ops standards for you, so that should they move on, there's something left behind to pass over. And these are the sorts of things, as we know, that make businesses more valuable as well, because it's a business with systems and processes that aren't in people's heads. They're actually documented. One of the great tools that you can use if you don't want to, let me just bring it up for you, if you don't want to be writing things down and creating endless Word documents, is a little tool called Loom. I don't know if you've come across that, Francis.
Yeah, I use it almost every day.
There you go. Great. So yes, this gives you the ability to record your screen. So as you're doing a particular task, you just record it onto Loom, and then that becomes almost the digital form of your operating manual. So because what I tend to find, especially if people are activists, which most trades are, the idea of getting them to sit and make a Word document doesn't exactly set them alight.
No.
But this is an easy way of, it's an alternative way of doing it that might be more time efficient.
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
Yeah.
Big fan of Loom.
And then the only other, coming back to this, the only other little activity that I sometimes give to people, which people prefer, and it's called the 6 most important things exercise. Sorry, I haven't got a sexier name than that. And it comes from a study from the 1800s, where I think it was the 1800s or early 1900s. A consultant went into a business and said, you know, I'll increase your profit by X. And the business owner said, well, how are you going to do that? And he says, and how much will it cost me? And he says, oh, don't give me any money, don't worry, just give me 3 months, and I'll come back in 3 months and see, you know, what effect it's had. And so he got the team together and he said, all I want you to do at the end of each day is write down your 6 most important things that you need to get done tomorrow. That's it. Come in tomorrow, work your way through the list. Anything that hasn't got done by the end of today, that day, that goes on the list for the following day. That's all I want you to do, the 6 most important things. And I haven't got the stats to hand, but it increased their profit immensely. And he went back in 3 months' time, and the owner of the business was called Bethlehem Steel, and the consultant was called Ivy Lee, and the business owner paid him a huge amount of money in the terms of what money was worth in those days, because of the increase in productivity that they'd seen. And that's all it was. You know, sometimes it's just about focus, isn't it? And kind of trying to take out the noise. And, you know, as I alluded to at the beginning there, there's just so much more noise nowadays to manage. There's so many more plates to spin. And unless we take that time out to step back and plan and prioritize and do these sorts of activities, then you just end up in this, like a hamster on a wheel chasing your tail.
Yeah.
Those would be kind of my top tips on time management. I don't know if you have any others that work for you, Francis.
I would love to hear. Well, Peter, do you have any questions? Would you like to add a little bit from your experience? How are you in managing time in your business?
Honestly, crap.
Well,
Really
thank you
bad.
for your honesty.
I get distracted too easily, too quickly. I set myself something to do, then something else will happen, or the phone will ring, or something like, and then I'll just.
I think you've frozen.
We've lost Peter just at the good.
Yeah. I know. It's not just me that's having internet issues, clearly.
Yeah. I think we're having a bad internet technical day. But
Richard,
okay, we'll see if Peter comes on. Richard, are you on the line? Would you like to contribute at all? Let's see if Richard pops out of the woodwork. No.
Don't know if he's on mute.
Wait, Peter's back. Peter, you're on mute. I have to unmute you. Yeah.
There we go.
Thank Peter, welcome back.
Thank you. I don't know what happened there. It was a bit odd.
Oh, I've had 2 days of
time management.
Well, you were saying about your time management in your business?
Yeah, my time management is diabolical. Absolutely diabolical. I'll get my head stuck into one thing, something will happen, I'll digress onto the other thing, and then something else will happen and I'll digress onto that, and then it's just a vicious circle of doing things. But I do keep a diary of what I've got to do each day, which Alison will hate because it's a paper diary. I'll find it easier. I'm real old school. And I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but my partner bought me this pad for my desk.
Okay. I'll get you done. Lovely. Okay, great.
And it's got things I meant to do yesterday, things I need to do today, and things I must do tomorrow written on it. And generally I do it.
Okay.
I've written the top sheet off.
Good.
So I'm trying to manage my time. It's just I find it very difficult.
Well, obviously you're on the academy, Peter, so you'll do the systems after the people.
Last night as well.
I know, we missed you. We did. We missed you. It's all about people. I think the recording. Don't worry. We're trying to get the recording up, but we've had huge technical issues today. But yeah, I mean, we go into this in a lot more detail, so you'll get all of this stuff in your workbook. But do have a go at doing this, because this tends to be the most popular one with the trades, this activity, which is why I'm focused on this as the main one tonight.
Just
about changing habits.
I'm trying. I do. Yeah, I mean, I have a list. My diary every day is full of a list of stuff I've got to do.
Yeah.
Like, you don't get around to doing all of it, but like you say, you push it across to the next day, some of it, and like I said, the less important things get pushed across.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to get there with it all, but time management and prioritising things has never been my strong point.
Well, I think this is about, changing habits. So it's recognizing that you've got to go through a bit of pain before it becomes a new habit. It's not something that, it's the whole conscious competence, unconscious competence. You're going through that cycle. So it's just plugging away at doing this stuff. I think the main thing is, I have the same challenges. It's just the amount of things that we have to cope with nowadays in today's working world. And I think the trick is really to almost shut the world out. And I know that that's, not always an easy thing to do, but it might be a case of like putting your out of office on and saying you're in a meeting or something for an hour. If it's urgent, contact me on this number, so there's a way of people getting hold of you. But it's trying to block out those distractions as much as possible, because this constant swapping between different tasks just tires you out, and actually it's not a great use of your time. It's something I'm continually having to work on. For me, it's like when I wrote the book, I went to a local coffee shop. That was the only way I could get it done. I had to sit somewhere different so that it blocked everything out. And I just did that for 2 hours at a time, and then I went back to everything else. So
the easiest time for me to do something like that is when I get up. So 5:30 in the morning, I'm on a computer. I'm doing the stuff I've got to do before I start work. So the important things I get done in the morning before I've got any distractions from anything. And then the less important things get done throughout the day. So I've got a couple of hours first thing in the morning to get the important bits done, and then spread it out. So
Peter, do you use any software to help keep you organized?
No. I am the world's worst with computers, phones, anything like that. I can't. I get so frustrated with technology. It's not so much technology, it's more my perception of technology. I perceive it to work a certain way, like it says it should do, and when it doesn't, I just want to pick it up and throw it out the window. That's why my diary.
I've just had 2 days of that.
I can't do it. Paper diaries, I can write stuff in it, I can cross it out. It doesn't crash, it doesn't lose work, it doesn't falter. It's there. Computers, no, I don't get on with computers.
I guess the thing is that when you get too much work coming in, and if you're growing your business and you have suppliers, jobs, equipment, leads, staff, problems, it will just become too much. It will become, it won't be possible. And I don't know if you want to grow your business or just manage your business, but I guess for some, there's a threshold that businesses come to where growing without technology these days, it's impossible. Possible. Physically, I'm not saying it's an opinion. I'm saying it's physically and literally an impossibility in today's age to grow your business without getting a grip or learning some
Oh, yeah.
even just
Yeah,
even
no,
means just staying organized.
Yeah.
No, I totally agree that everything is going more and more technical, more and more digital, everything. And having never been that way inclined, I've always used my hands. I've always been hands-on with stuff and never had to deal with computers up until a few years ago.
Yeah.
It's that transition. It's that transition of getting to grips with technology. And what's out there. I mean, you'll people come out with, and Alison, you've been saying things on the academy with regards to apps and programs on a computer, and I've been sitting here scratching my head thinking, what the hell are they? How's that going to help me? And trying to think, bloody hell, I've got to get my head around this program, this app, that app, and it blows my mind trying to organise all that as well.
Yeah. Well, I suppose and the trick is to have somebody maybe doing some of that for you, and then just taking steps. I mean, the reality is you have got to grips with the computer. You do join Zoom meetings, so it's just doing it in baby steps. I really would take a look at Microsoft To Do. That's what I use. It's here, we can see. So this is my to-do list, and the trick, this can sync with your phone. It's just an app you put on the phone, you have it on your desktop, and then you're not having to continually rewrite lists. And then you can have like different project lists as well. So like that.
That looks very easy to use. Even you can use this, Peter.
It's very easy to use.
Are you sure about it?
It is very easy to use. So it's just, maybe it's just taking on something new each month. But I'd also profess to, you'll be going through talent dynamics soon on the academy, Peter, and that's about understanding your strength. I do think there's certain bits that I just outsource because I haven't got the time to be an expert in. And I've always done that with my business. Gradually, I've outsourced bit by bit, and it's always paid off. It's always enabled me to grow and be more profitable ultimately. And that's hard for me because I'm like a bit of a perfectionist. I find it hard to sometimes let go unless I've got complete trust in that person. But I've had to. Otherwise, I just would have, as Francis said, I just would have hit a wall. I would never have grown. So
I mean, some of the outsourcing stuff is great as well. And don't get me wrong, it's something that will happen at some point. But also, I've had to take a step. I've had to wind my business back a bit, and scale it down a little bit over the last couple of months, due to factors out of my control. So I'm finding it difficult to try and outsource certain things because you outsource stuff that's going to cost you money. Whereas at the moment, I've got to be a bit tight with my money because of having to scale things down a little bit.
I think it's just doing it little by little, isn't it? It's just doing it, a few hours maybe.
Managing what I've got now. Manage what I've got now and then build it back up again. Because it was built up quite nicely to a real nice point a couple of years ago. And over the last, since the beginning of last year, it's taken a bit of a downward spiral.
Right.
So now I've got to manage that level that it's at the minute and then get it back up again.
Yes.
But I've just got to the point where that's business is business. Things happen. You've got to adjust. Absolutely. And then you've got to adjust again.
Absolutely.
Whether I look at it.
Yeah. There's always challenges. There's always
whether I'm
problems
looking at it the right way or not, I don't know. But if there wasn't a challenge in business, there wouldn't be much of a business to do. I don't think.
Well, if it were easy, everyone would do it.
Absolutely.
And it's like, I can tell you, if I knew how hard it would be to be an entrepreneur and a business owner, if someone told me, or I really realized, I might have not ever left a
Really?
corporate job.
Really?
Now, 2 years later,
Uh-huh.
I would never go back.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
That's a different story because
Yes.
I've
Yes.
overcome so many challenges
Mm,
and
mm,
hardships, and I've learned so much. But
yes.
the thing
Yes.
is that I think that being a business owner is many, many times harder than you realize if you're not a business owner, and it
Yeah.
is full of challenges.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
So,
I'm
but
reading
I'd never
it.
go back either.
Sorry.
Sorry, no, I wouldn't go back to being employed by anybody now.
No, I wouldn't.
I couldn't do it.
Yeah,
No, I
couldn't do
couldn't.
it.
I'm unemployable.
you're
Yeah.
unemployable.
I am. Yeah. I'm reading a great book at the moment by Anya Hindmarch, the handbag company. Really interesting, insightful, and yeah, she's saying a lot of what we're talking about here, actually. So, but she came from a family of entrepreneurs. That's she'd never worked for a company.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So we're
Right.
digressing a little bit.
Yes.
Maybe, went into conversation, but I guess we're going to wrap up here. Would you like to just leave us with a few final thoughts on time management, Alison?
Oh, I would say prioritizing,
Okay.
remove distractions, and be strict with yourself. Even if it's just for half an hour to start with, get into that habit of going, right, for the next half an hour, I'm just going to focus on doing this, and I'm not going to look at emails, answer the phone. There's a way of people contacting me if it's an emergency, if it puts your mind at rest. I guess the third one would be use some kind of exercise like this. I mean, there's also mind mapping, which I haven't covered this evening, but we're covering that on the Academy. That can be a way of getting everything down that's in your head. But do some kind of activity like the urgent important matrix or the 6 most important things, so that you're taking that step back and you've got time in your diary to do planning and organizing. Even if it's just starting with 1 hour a week, it will start to pay dividends. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Cool.
Thanks to everyone for watching.
Yes,
giving
thank
us
you.
your ears and your eyes, and we will be back in about 2 weeks.
2 weeks. That's
about 2 weeks time with episode 5 of the Trades Accelerator sessions. I won't tell you what it is, but it's one of the most exciting ones. You'll just have to guess.
One of the most important.
There you go. Thank you for logging on. We'll see you in the community and online and on Facebook and in all relevant channels. Bye-bye. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.